Welcome to Can TV 21 Hotline. Let's talk etiquette. And once again, we are back with you. So excited about this show in particular because it's dealing with one of those traditions, those 400 year traditions. I think we've forgotten about tradition. It once meant something to follow tradition. I see it in the schools every day. I see it with the proms. Whatever happened to tradition? I mean, the kids are doing whatever they want to do at prom. Prom is supposed to be a formal event. Not informal, but formal event. And yet they have turned it into, I don't know what is a costume show or I don't know what kind of party it is. I mean, they don't even sit down for dinner at the prom. They eat buffet with their hands and fingers. Whatever happened to tradition? The word prom comes from the word promenade. And it's a 500 year tradition to promenade. And so when the schools, the public schools in particular, decided to give their children the same thing that the wealthy people give their children, a coming out party, a welcome to society as an adult. And so the public schools decided to adopt it, but they didn't want to call it a promenade. They decided to call it a prom. And so that's how that name came about. But at one time it had tradition. There were certain things and certain rules you adhered to, part of the school's tradition. Yet there is no tradition anymore. You can do anything, I suppose, almost, as you choose. And some of our young ladies are dressing, it's unbelievable. It is absolutely unbelievable the way our young women and young men are dressing going to prom. Some are wearing sneakers, some have turned the formal suit into some kind of costume that only clowns would wear at the circus or somewhere. But anyway, we're going to be talking about fine dining today. And so please give me a call. That number is 312-738-1060. And why is this subject the subject that is so important in our world today? I think we started on this last week, covered a few points on it, and I want to get back to that so we can talk about it in a little more detail than what we talked about last week. And my presentation material is a little better than what I had last week if you happen to tune that particular broadcast in. I have something a little more visual that I think is important. But here, why don't I do this? Let me hold this up so you can perhaps see it right there in front of you. You can see it. Very good. It's larger than what's on the overhead, but maybe I can get some of that in at a later point if we choose to do so. But I want to go through this with you to repeat what we talked about last week. Now remember, dining is an international exercise. Okay? If you're in England, you're in New York, you're in Paris, the table is going to be set identical to what you see here. And the reason for that is because they don't want to confuse anyone. They want you to come to your table and see what you anticipate seeing. So this is why it's set this way. Now they've divided us into classes. The lower classes eat with plastic utensils and with their hands. The lower middle classes may use some plastic utensils and a paper plate. And the higher classes, income-wise and culturally, have sterling silver and fine china and crystal glasses at the table. That's to reflect their status in the world. And so this is something that our poorest child, our most lowest class child, our most impoverished child can learn. And if they learn this like they're being taught how to play basketball, then when the day comes for them to sit at the table with the money people, the affluent people, they will be able to do this with ease. And they will be richly rewarded in terms of their participation at the table. Because what happens with wealthy people? They eat out all the time. It's nothing unusual for them to say, let's have lunch together, Bob. Your schedule, would your schedule permit it? Let's go to lunch. Let's have dinner. Let's meet with our attorney at dinner tomorrow. Will your schedule permit it? And so a lot of their business is being done over a meal. See? So, but if you can't navigate, you don't understand, it's going to be obvious. You can't fake this. It's no different from any other discipline. You can't fake tennis. You can't fake basketball. Not that you can't get out there and try to bounce the ball. But to say that you understand and know what you're doing is going to be very, very obvious. This is worth your time training your children every day so that when they become an adult, they don't even have to think about what to do. They'll do it. And for those families who do not have a lot of resources and income to afford this kind of table setting, go to the thrift store. Okay? Salvation Army. You will find all of this there. 50 cents for a cup, 25% for a saucer, a glass $1. So don't say that you can't afford to have a table setting like this. Okay? So let's go over again exactly what table etiquette represents, and also we're going to cover what dining etiquette represents. Two disciplines. One is how to set the table and understand the rules for why the table is set the way it is, so that when you invite me to dinner, I will immediately know when I see your table setting that you know what you're doing, that you're not pretending. And it doesn't take but one little mistake, and I'll say, oh, to myself, of course, I never would say it to you. Oh, they don't know how to place their dessert forks. I see the dessert forks are not placed properly. Oh, I see the knives are not turned in the right direction. Maybe they don't know, maybe it's a mistake. So there are things that you would not want to make a mistake on because it will reflect on your table etiquette skills. Okay? So what are we going to do? We're going to go over this today again. And I'm going to try to hold this up. If it doesn't work, I'll go to the overhead and see if I can point out some of these things to you. You know what? It may just very well work on the overhead. Let's try it and see. I'm going to place it down here. And then I'm going to go to the overhead. Okay. Now I know this can zoom out. Let me try to zoom out. Oh, great. Perfect. Perfect. Move some of this paper out of the way here. Perfect. Okay. Now, what are you looking at here? You're looking at a table setting, and you're looking at also how many courses are going to be served to you. As an example here, okay? Now, the forks are on the left, and the knives and spoons are on the right. This is a European table setting, okay? And the reason it's European, I'm going to go over this again, is because the Europeans favor their left hand. Okay? They prefer their main hand to be their left hand. And this goes back to nobility and the aristocrats who decided that the peasants were primarily right-handed. And if you check now, most people are right-handed, only a few are left-handed. So they wanted to be able to identify a nobleman or a person who had nobleman training. Okay? So they said, we're going to switch it. We're going to eat with our left hand, even though we may be right-handed, and then use our right hand as our support hand. Now, the peasants would never do that. They wouldn't go through the trouble of trying to learn to eat with their left hand because they're naturally right-handed. So this is the logic behind why the forks are on the left and the knives and spoons are on the right. Okay? Now, your dessert utensils are placed at the top of the plate. Okay? And the key to your dessert, placing your dessert utensils correctly, is that no utensil should be in your hand, especially a fork, should never be in any other hand but your left hand. And therefore, the head of the fork and the handle is facing in this direction so that you would not be able to pick up that fork with your right hand. This is why it's facing that way. And I know most of you have probably seen this, but never understood why the fork is facing to the right and the dessert spoon is facing to the left. Now you know. Now here, the reason you would have two utensils for dessert, if the dessert is some form of maybe pie and ice cream, to make it simple, you want to give your guests the opportunity to use either a spoon or a fork. And yes, they have specific utensils that you will know that are for the dessert and not for your salad, as an example. This dessert fork is not the same size as the salad fork. Okay? The next rule of thumb is everything is sized differently so that you can identify them. Let me say that again. Everything here is sized differently so that you can identify which is for what. As an example are your dinner fork, and it could be called a place fork, that's a proper term, and your salad fork. The salad fork is smaller than the dinner fork. You can easily see which is for what. Okay? The same with your knives. Here you have your salad knife, which is smaller than your dinner knife, so that you know which knife to pick up to eat your dinner with or your salad with. Here are the spoons. Your spoons are in order in accordance to the courses that's going to be served to you. Now the discipline is to start from the out and work your way into the plate. So what are you doing when you set the table like this? You're telling your guests how many courses are going to be served to them and in what order they are going to receive those courses. This is essentially what you're telling them. In Europe, if you go to London, they normally eat their salads right before dessert. Whereas in America, we normally eat our salads first or second. Okay? Usually first is the first course. So that means the salad fork is furthest out to the left. Okay? And also, your salad knife is furthest out in accordance with the two knives, your dinner knife and your salad knife. So then now I know how many courses are going to be served to me by counting the utensils. And it's simple. Course number 1 is going to be salad. Course number 2 is going to be soup. Course number 3 is going to be my main entree. And the 4th course is going to be my dessert. See? That's how it works. If you don't know the rules, it's hard to play the game when you don't know the rules. Another example of what utensil goes in the right hand versus the left hand. Knives are always to be in the right hand. Never have a knife in your left hand. That's an immediate giveaway that you haven't been trained. You know, like trained to play basketball. You haven't been trained in fine dining. So that means this little knife here, the way it's placed on the bread plate, is that the handle is facing to the left. And, the blade is facing to the left, and the handle is to the right. So that means to pick that butter spreader up, I would have to use my right hand to pick it up because the handle is in a position that says that's the proper way to pick that up. I think I have a caller. Caller, you have a question? Oh, okay, the caller hung up. Okay, So, as I was saying, so the blade is always facing in the same way the blade on the knives here are facing in towards the plate. That's critical. If that blade is facing the other way, then that's improper way of placing it at the table. Okay? Follow me so far. Now, your napkin is always to the left. The only other circumstances for that napkin to be anywhere else would be on the plate itself, and that signifies that it's a formal event. But you know that because you received an invitation, black tie only. We have a caller. Caller, are you there? You have a question?
Yes, sir. This is Ray.
Hello, Ray. How are you?
Oh, fine. You?
Good.
Okay.
What's your question, Ray?
In a perfect world, what you're saying is right. The etiquette, everything is perfectly right. But people, they don't eat all of that fast food. They eat sandwiches. They surely don't need a napkin. They got paper towels. Some of them probably don't even know what a fork looks like because they always put their hand, So I love the show, and everything they put on is a paper plate.
You're right.
They don't plates anymore. For what? To make a sandwich or throw a few tacos on there? Like I'm Mexican, that's what I use. But all of that other stuff is for people that understand the right way to eat, the right way to use utensils, the right way to use all of that stuff. But you know what? In a perfect world, that's all fine and dandy. But here, that'll never happen. You may have 100 people in North Chicago that have all of that stuff that you're talking about.
Well, at one time, we had it. Even the lower classes had it. Lower middle classes had it.
Sure. I understand that.
Yeah, yes.
But now, it's not going to happen. Listen, when I was growing up, I'm 7 years old. When I was growing up, you sat at the table, you were quiet till after you ate, and then you could talk a little bit. Plate, forks.
Tradition.
Glasses. Tradition, exactly.
Tradition.
But that's all out.
So valuable.
Yep.
So valuable.
That's all out the door now, and it's a shame.
Yes.
But I really enjoy your show, and I'll give you a call next
Thank you.
week.
Thank you. Call me next week. You pointed something out very important, and that's we don't do those things anymore because we have been slowly moved towards casual dining. And it's been a 30-year process, and they have been very successful at creating these hundreds of restaurants. You can name all 10 of your fingers, you can name them, where you eat with your fingers, where you eat with your hands restaurant. And that's by design. The reason for that is because the whole movement towards taking the mother out of the tradition of cooking, preparing a meal, setting the table for her family, they have decided that that's billions of dollars that can be made by taking over those old-fashioned traditions called cooking at home for your family for a meal and not having to go to Kentucky Fried Chicken to buy your chicken. You cook it at home. And so this is a wonderful part of our tradition that has slipped away from us, and now we don't even understand what that all means. We have another caller. Caller, you have a question?
Yes, Mr. Wright, and good evening to you.
Hey, Steve, how you doing?
You,
Good to hear
you
from
know
you.
what? This reminds me so much of when you first came on the air. You and your lady friend that used to be with you.
Yes, Sandra.
You took, it's a big word, and it's called redundant. Over and over and over. Because, see, actually, we are the pupils, and you are the teacher. And I think you need to do more of this over and over and
Competitive, I
over.
believe in it.
Yes. And
Yes.
it will get, more competitive where you want to do these things. No but a few little restaurants that people could go out and spend this money, or you're so lucky, get blessed to be on a cruise and you can sit at the captain's table.
Right.
The places where you could be at. But again, it's so wonderful to continue to see you teaching us.
Thank
I
you.
think, again, so many times you're a hell of a guy.
Thank
I
you.
love to just sometimes be quiet and look at the teacher teach. And then we remember what you have taught us. You're a heck of a man.
Thank
You're a
you,
heck
sir.
of a man, Mr. Wright.
Thank you.
Listen,
Thank you.
I'm going to get out there because I know you're running short, and I hope somebody else is trying to call you.
Thank
You
you.
just make sure you be here next week.
I will.
And again, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for you being there. Let me get out there so I can hear your response.
Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate that. That kind of validation is very, very important. Even for me, it motivates me to continue to do this. I realize how important it is. If I don't know of anyone else, Steve, that's doing this personally in Chicago, there may be a few African American women who are teaching it. But as far as our men in this city, I know of none that has the knowledge to be able to even teach this. So it's really a lost art, and I'm trying to keep it alive because I know its value. It hasn't gone anywhere. Like you said, the captain's table, it hasn't gone anywhere. If you want to be among people with money and influence, you need to know this. There's no way around it. Now, if you just want a job working for the government, you won't have to do anything but continue to eat with your hands. No one is going to make a difference of it because most don't really know the connection unless you're in higher administration in the government. So, but thank you, Steve. I really appreciate that word of encouragement. Continue to call and give me that. I can certainly use it. But back to the layout here. And we're still covering table etiquette. We haven't got, next week we're going to deal with dining etiquette. So, because it's such an entire discipline that it takes at least 28 minutes to even to cover it. Okay, but I'm going to go here real quickly to this little item here. This is, let me say this about your napkins. You have two sizes of napkins. You have a luncheon napkin and you have a dinner napkin. The luncheon napkin is about 13 inches square. The dinner napkin is 18 to 20 inches square. So make sure if you have a luncheon, you want to have the proper size napkin at your table. Up here is called a salt cellar with a salt spoon. You could have a normal salt shaker shaped like this right here, which is a pepper shaker. And the reason the pepper shaker is on the right and the salt cellar is on the left is because the spoon in that salt cellar has to be used by the right hand. And it's just reversed so that you can do that very, very, very easily. Now, with the glasses, you have 4 glasses here. The first glass is your water glass. These other glasses do not have to be at this setting. You can still have a 4-course meal. Your water goblet is the largest glass, and the reason this is a goblet versus simply a water glass, it has a foot, and that makes it a goblet. And then, of course, you have your champagne flute. That's second. The third glass is your red wine glass, which is larger than your white wine glass. Now, you may ask, why would I have 2 wine glasses at the table setting? The reason for that is because you're going to have 2 different kinds of meat. White wine with white meat, red wine with red meat. So now you understand which beverage to consume while eating your steak or while eating your baked fish or chicken. Okay? And of course, next is your cup and saucer. Remember, in setting the table, you want to put the handle of the cup at 3 o'clock. It could be at 3 or at 5 o'clock. Okay? And that should be consistent. If you have your cup at 3 o'clock, the handle, then your knife should be parallel, your butter spreader, on the bread plate. If your cup handle is at 5 o'clock, then this knife should be turned to 5 o'clock. A little slight, adjustment to let those who know that you know. What's under the dinner plate is a charger. It's a decorative plate. It's really there just for decoration. It could be there or not be there, and it wouldn't matter. If you like to kind of fancy your table up a little bit, you would add that charger underneath that dinner plate. So that's a pretty good wrap on this table setting. I may have missed a few things, but overall I think you have a good sense of how to set the table and do it in an attractive way. But I'd like to conclude remembering that your grandparents had that former dining room, and she had that china cabinet sitting over there, and she was so proud of her fine china, and it would be on display, so when you come to her home, she would be willing to show it off. That's a wonderful tradition. So, with that, I will conclude, rediscover our history, and learn from it. My name again is Nathan Wright. I'm the Executive Director of the Etiquette Foundation of Illinois, and I look forward to seeing you next week, and we're going to cover dining etiquette. Have a good evening.